All right, Via Babes, welcome. Well, this is an exciting time, isn't it? I'm so excited about this time of year. It's actually one of my favorite times for so many reasons. Anyways, today's guest, I'm excited for you to hear her story. It is a journey. It's got lots of twists and turns, and also she's walking her talk. And I think it's important to hear that you're not alone in taking two steps forward and a step backwards, that it happens to us all the time. And then also that there's other ways of doing it. And I really think you're going to enjoy this. There's a lovely free gift at the end. So make sure you check that out, check our guests out. And I also, I love the Be It action items, but I really love this one. I think it is something you can simply do right now while you're listening to this podcast, while you're walking your dog or in your car. So as she asks those Be It action questions that she poses, I want you to, maybe hit pause and like answer it and then like play and pause and then play until you get there. Our guest this week is Stacy McAlpine, and she has an incredible career. Like, I'm not kidding. And then also what she is doing now. And I think it is just so awesome to see that there's so many possibilities if you are wanting to change your life and change what you're doing. I know you might feel like there's all these obstacles in the way, but there are things that will allow you to be able to do it. And there's not a lot stopping you, but maybe you and your ability to have clarity and possibility in your life. And so I hope Stacy's story inspires you. So after this quick break, you'll hear from Stacy McAlpine. Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. All right, Be It Babes. I am really excited. I have a wonderful woman for you to learn from today, Stacy McAlpine. And you know what I love so much about this podcast is I get to meet so many new people that I probably may never have met in real life. And so Stacy, you're one of those people that I feel like our paths would have crossed eventually, but I'm glad they're crossing here. Can you tell everyone who you are and what you're up to?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I love doing this. It's so fun because I kind of meet your audience a little bit. So hello. My name's Stacy McAlpine. My background is I was in consulting for 20 years. Every time I do one of these, I'm like, I say 20 years and then years go by. So it's got to be more than 20 years. But at a minimum, it's been at least 20 years of consulting for big four consulting firms, so PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst and Young, and those types of firms. And my clients were some of the biggest organizations on the planet. So think Department of Defense, Google, those big government organizations. And my specialty was all about project management, process improvement, and change management. And to do whether you're changing an organization of 250,000 people or an individual of one, it all takes individual action. So the bigger ones, it's like you're trying to get individuals to take action, not just a giant group of people. And so through that process, what I realized, because also being my big personal development nerd, which I think maybe your audience can associate with, you said there's some
100%.
some perfectionists, maybe perfectionismitis. But so, when just always love learning about how to be my better self or how to like not hate my life. And so, because that was easy to do back then. I mean, I was working 50 to 60-hour weeks. There was a time when I was doing all of this for my clients, but my life sucked. So, thinking my husband was in law school at the time, full time.
Mhm.
I was living in the DC area with an hour and a half one-way commute with fun traffic. I had a stepdaughter in high school. I had a child, one child that kept calling me grandma because she saw my mom more than she saw me,
Oh gosh.
racking up the credit card debt because we were living on one income. So
Yeah.
I had literally $98,000 in credit card debt. plus an upside down mortgage, plus racking up a $200,000 law school loan. So I was a little stressed. A
I
little
was
bit.
going to say, before hearing all of that, I was like, this job sounds so stressful because
Yeah.
like these aren't these aren't like, not that you would ever just like, oh, it's so easy to consult, but like those are like the the things that those people put out into the world affect millions
Oh
of
yeah.
people.
Yes. Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I loved that about what I was doing. The clients that I was working with, my boss at the time, he's completely changed my life. Um, Amazing human being. I followed him to three different companies. Every time he left, I'm like, don't leave me. I want to work for you. You know, you work for people, not companies.
Yeah.
But he was always talking about being tip of the spear, you know, touching the mission. And so, you know, and I'm working with Homeland Security and helping people not blow up on a plane.
Right.
You know, when I'm working with the Department of Defense, I was working with military health on psychological health and traumatic brain injury center of excellence, like the biggest, longest sentence of all time. But the Department of Defense and Veteran Affairs had a joint initiative to build this center of excellence to help the military recover from PTSD and psychological health as well as how do you become more resilient and how do you help people. So it's like I'm working with these people. You know,
Yeah.
it was
So like
amazing.
each
Amazing.
project was like hugely impactful or needed to be
Yeah.
for many people. So that's a level of stress. And so you're going in and you're like so focused on these things, but then your life out behind is like
Yeah.
kind of needing it's needing a reboot of some kind. It's needing some support because that's
Yes.
hard. Because, well, I mean, I think a lot of people listening can all relate to having one income at some point. Like my husband and I, there was a time when he was switching careers. So it was on my business only. And then, you know, and then he had his income started up again. And then we decided, let's just all
Yeah.
go in on my thing. So then we're back on like this thing. And those transitions themselves are big decisions and can weigh a lot on your mind. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And so, you know, that pressure was heavy. And I would like literally wake up crying, like hating
Yeah.
my life, thinking like there is no light at the end of this tunnel. Where is this light? How do you make up $98,000 in credit card debt? How do you pay an upside down mortgage? How do you know, survive a career like mine? Like if I left, you know, the salary with that pressure is, you know, it's a good salary. So if I were to leave that profession, I would be taking a huge pay cut. So I couldn't afford to do that either, you know. And I
Mm-hmm.
figured, well, if I leave in order to match my salary, it's going to be just as a stressful job. Like, who pays people this when it's no stress, right? Like, that's just not
Right.
how that works. And I never really felt like I was making as much as I was because it was all going to debt. So, like, I never felt like,
Yeah.
you know, so it just was like that so frustrating to know that you're making a good income, yet you're like literally poor, literally like checking the gas tank and hoping that,
Yeah.
you know,
Can
you
this
could
get me
pay the
there?
next one.
Yeah.
But so with that, I was in a space of overwhelm, and yet I was getting all this change for my clients. And something that there's just a big void in the personal development space of how do you actually implement it?
Yes.
Right. So there's a lot of motivation, a lot of inspiration, a lot of like really cool ideas and totally legit that work.
Yeah.
But when you're in a state of overwhelm, when your life is like, if somebody asks me one more thing, I might punch them in the face because I can't handle my emotions right now.
I
Like,
feel like every mom listening is like, yeah, I would like if my kids
oh,
say my
yeah,
name one more time. So yes, I'm with you
right?
because it's true. Like I'll hear these amazing affirmations or quotes or like ideas or theories, and it's like, yes. And then that's why we have Be It Action items at the end of the show. And then what do I do? How do I do it? How do I
Exactly.
put this into my already crazy, stuck,
Yeah,
overwhelmed life?
yeah, 100%. And it's like, have you ever seen, oh, what is that? It's like a movie with the moms, like not badass moms. What is
The
that
bad
called?
moms? The bad
Bad
moms?
moms.
Yeah. Yeah.
They might as well be badass, right?
Yeah.
But bad moms, you know, and where the woman, what's her name?
Christina
Kristen.
Applegate or
Yes, thank
yeah,
you. Yes. No, the other girl.
the other
Anyway,
one.
the
Yeah.
blonde that's in there. Who I love. It's gonna bug me now. I'm gonna have to just delete the it will happen. Anyway, so she was like talking about wanting to be in the hospital as a break. Like I literally was jealous of Martha Stewart. Thought, oh my God, if I go to jail, I could like have time. I could process my ideas. I
Right.
was driving around the parking lot trying to find a parking spot at the post office, and I told my kids, I'm like, you're gonna have to tell the kids at school that your mom is in a mental hospital because she couldn't find a parking spot. Because I was like losing my mind. I was so
Right.
annoyed. So this is who I was for my kids, right? And it's like, I don't even want my kids to be like me. But plus, they're not even going to know who I am. Like, how do they even? This is not the
No,
person that I want them to think that I am. Like, how do you have a relationship with
they're
your
calling you
kids when they
grandma. They think that you're going to go crazy in a parking lot.
yes,
They never see
100%,
you. And then when they do see you, there's no money or time for anything. So
right?
what fun
Yeah,
is
you know
that?
what's
Yeah.
interesting? So my stepdaughter, so my husband at the time was in law school. I was working my ass off, like totally a disaster, stress ball. We didn't have much money, even though we were, pursuing all these dreams. And she was screwing up her grades, like major. It's like really hard to have that bad of grades. And you have to try to get great. And so we're like, what is your deal? Like literally, all you have to do is turn in a piece of paper and circle one thing and you'd have better grades, right? And she's like, I just don't want to work as hard as you guys. Like, I don't ever want to. What's the point? Like, I don't want to have a life like that. So, what's the point? I'd
Oh,
rather just not. Like, what's the point of school? That's what it does to you. And it's like, whoa, that's intense, right? I'm thinking he's following his dream. And maybe it's like this great example. And it literally demotivated her so much that she didn't even want to deal with school because she's like, what's the point? I don't like it. You guys are doing a bunch of stuff
yeah.
you don't like. So I just
Yeah.
don't want to do that. Interesting, right? So that ripple
Well,
effect.
I mean, actions are caught, not taught. And
Oh,
like here you are, like you have a job that is super impactful. Again, like all the things that you're consulting on are really supposed to be life changing for the better.
yeah,
And yet what they're seeing is, oh, if I do well at school, I get to work too hard, be stressed
yep,
out, have no money, have no time, and want
yeah,
to go into a mental hospital after I've crashed my
right?
car into the post office so that I can find a parking
Yeah,
space.
yeah,
So
exactly.
how did you go from like, gosh, we do want to follow up on how her grades are, but how did you go from like that to like what you are doing now? What was that? What was the
Yeah,
breaking point? Was it the post office parking lot?
right. Well, it was one when like I literally threw my BlackBerry across the car once, which BlackBerry, dating me, right? But I just am like, who the hell am I right now? Like, who am I? And something had to change. And I have a longer story that we aren't going to have time for of like what my real moment was. But it all comes down to, I was in a nutshell, I was at a mall of all places. And like when there were malls that you like walked around in
Yeah.
on purpose.
Yeah. I had an
And
anxiety attack walking around one of those
yeah,
and
and
realized I need
I,
to change my life.
right? I know, right? And it's like my friend at the time, and I was like snapping at my kid who was just being cute and skipping around. And she's like, something needs to change. And I'm like, hot tip. Thanks. Like, I didn't know that, but she cared. Like, you could tell she cared. She's like, you are just imploding. Like, you can't keep going like this. It's just killing you. And when you hear something at the exact right time, like it's sort of like somebody saying, how are you doing? Like bawling your head off because they
Yeah.
just triggered the tears because they asked you how you're doing. And
Yeah.
it's not like I didn't know. It's not like it wasn't this news. Oh my God, I didn't know that. But so she tells me this, and I'm thinking, yeah, I know, but I don't know how to get out of it. I'm getting into my minivan, strapping my daughter into the car seat, hoping she falls asleep. And the music that comes on is this Hallmark CD, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. I've been trying to find them. I can't find it. It's called like A Drive in the Country or something. And so it's this happy, lovely, peaceful music. And it's what I used to listen to when I was dating my husband, where we were just having this amazing time. And I could not connect. Like there was zero emotion. Like there was no happiness at all. It was just numb. And I just started bawling, like snot bawling, not just crying, like like
Like you look
literally
like a
snot
girl
everywhere.
who should be in a Hallmark movie of some kind before the
Yeah,
before the story gets to the happy
before
ending.
the
Yeah.
story. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, like that was a big moment for part of like what changed kind of thing. It was just, I can't keep doing this. And then I'm watching this movie called Flicka. which I don't know if you ever heard, is about this horse and this teenager, and Tim McGraw's in it. And this teenager like builds this relationship with this horse, and they're kind of broken souls healing one another, right? And no one had a BlackBerry. Nobody had a laptop open except, Tim McGraw was like counting the numbers for the farm, so there's stress, and I know it's a movie, but it's like other people do different things. Like there's other careers. There are
Yeah.
other things people do that, and then you can start, when you really think about it, it's like there are people that run oil rigs. Like there are people that are on TV. Like they're so different. Lives are so different. And I just realized I had this moment of I've done this to myself. I did this. It's not like some victim. Like I chose to support my husband to go to law school. I chose to have this kid. I chose this crazy career. I did this and
Mhm.
I need to get my way out. Like I have to do something different. There are other things on the planet that could
Yeah.
possibly be happening, right? And so
Yeah.
that really triggered it. And then I was thinking about my clients and I'm like, well, why the hell can't I change if I'm helping these people, like huge organizations? It's like turning the Titanic literally to get any government change and it's working. So why can't I get
Yeah. If
that
you
in
can
my own
turn
life?
governmental programs around, I think you can turn
Right?
your life around.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm like, what am I missing? And so what I ended up doing was taking the stuff that I had been learning in personal development, like Tony Robbins stuff, all the things that, personal power and listening to them where you get clear on stuff, but then there's no implementation. So I used what was out there to get some clarity, but then I started bringing in the change management process and the project management tools and business process improvement of like applying that to my life
So you're
of how do
taking the
I actually
tools that
do it?
you already use and changing individuals in organizations.
Yes.
And you're like, I'm just going to take what I already do and I'm just going to do it to me and
Yeah.
my life. This is
Right.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'm going to pretend I'm a client. And so I started doing that and it just like changed everything, like everything. Because in project management, what your purpose is to help your clients get clarity of what is the outcome that you actually want. A lot of project managers, like you'll come in and you're like, oh, what do you want? I want to implement a new system. Well, why? Like, why do you want to implement? Is it just because you want new technology because it's old? Or is it because you want to be able to enable your team to make a bigger impact by processing this faster to get money to these people faster so they can be out in the field and not get killed by bullets?
Right.
Like you could
Yeah.
draw the thread, pull that thread, and it's like, what is it really that your outcome is? And once you know the outcome that you want, then you can start to say, okay, so what's it going to take to get that outcome? Like, what are the things that if you were to do these things, would make that happen? And then you can get into, okay, well, how do you know when you're going to get those? Like, how can you measure, yes, I am or I'm not going to get that? And then you can say, okay, so now we know where we're going. Now we know what it is that is going to give us the indicators that we're on the right path. So, how do we resource this? Who do you need to have? What kind of resources do you need to get there? And then map it out, create the plan, build it out. And then all you have to do is walk the plan. So we do
Mm,
that within the first month of a year-long project, and then you're just working the plan. And so that's what I do for individuals. It's like, how do I help you get so clear using change management principles, using project management techniques on what it is that you really want your life to be about and your impact and how do you want life to feel?
yeah.
And then work that process, right? And then we map out. So I have a program called Love and Life Accelerator, which is taking the stuff that we do in my foundational program, which is called Walk the Talk Weekend. It's a 2.5 day program where you really get that clarity. You get,
Yeah.
okay, what is that out? Like helping people get that. It's like, oh, go get clarity. No, I help you. I help
Yeah.
you walk
Uh,
through that, right?
Yeah. I
So
love
there's the
this.
implementation.
So this is okay. So I love this. We have a project manager on our team and like I have a love hate because I'm like, I want to do this thing. And they're like, okay, let's have a meeting. I'm like, I just want to do the thing. Just want to go.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
let me do my thing. And they're like, no, actually, we need to like, what's the outcome? Why are we doing this? Who's it for? How
Yeah,
do we want them to process? Who's involved? All the things. But what ends up happening is that everyone knows their role and everyone can do the thing, and no
exactly.
one is falling it like off the plan. And then you get to the outcome and you have something that's totally different. So it's
Totally.
amazing. So
Yeah.
so you did this for yourself. And so how long did it take for you to put the principles on your own life. And then how long did it take you? Like, did you get out of the debt? Did your partner get out of college? Like, what happened to help
Yeah.
you not throw your BlackBerry anymore?
Right? Yeah. So it was not like an overnight fix, right? But it was the beginning of once I did my principles, my values with the Tony Robbins thing. Then I started putting it into the pieces that I just talked about, and that's like, I don't know, I guess you could maybe call it a month. I don't remember. Like my life was so, yeah, like I don't remember the timeline. But it was over the course of those next few months when here's the thing, you don't have to have the outcome to have your life change. You want to know what the outcome is and have a trusted system, a trusted method that you know when you do it, it works. So that gives you this sense of security and this relief now. So you don't
That's
have to wait,
brilliant. I hope everyone just
right?
heard that because it's like it's so many people are waiting for the outcome to happen to
Yeah.
feel the change, but you know what the outcome is. You know you've put the tools in place, and so you can actually feel the effects of that now. It's like the light at the end of the
Yes.
tunnel. It's not a train, it really is there. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I love that. I love that. So you did that and then you started to feel those effects of it. And then how long did you leave? Are you still consulting for like what
Well,
happened next?
the fastest version of the story is basically I ended up trying to quit my job. And my boss was like, I was about to make director, 6 months from director, which is not an easy thing to do in consulting. It's a very flat organization. So if you go from manager to director, they're expecting that you're going to be potentially a partner. So it's like a big vetting thing, right? So
Mm,
I was 6 months away from when that was going to happen. I give my resignation because I got all this clarity that this sucks. I'm not doing this. And I actually went to go, I had a job waiting for me with Homeland. I was going to give up all this maternity leave. I was like, I'll figure this out, right? I'll find a
yeah.
way. And so had that as a backup plan, gave my notice. And he's like, what if you could work 40-hour weeks, 2 days a week from home? I'm like, you get fired. Who are you? And why are you saying this?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, but I think you can do it. And I'm like, name one manager in a big four consulting firm in your entire time in this industry that's ever made director working 40-hour weeks, 2 days a week from home. Like, name one. And he
Yeah.
kind of looks away. And then he looks back. He's like, I think you can do it. Me, the only person on the planet can do it. So here's the deal is that I had the backup job, right? So I said, will you hold my job for 6 months? And I'll do this whole 40-hour, 2 days a week thing from home. And if it doesn't work out, I've got a job in 6 months if I don't make director. So
Yeah.
that's what I ended up doing. And I ended up working 40-hour weeks, 2 days a week from home, and making director at a big four consulting firm. And what it all came down to was getting clear on what is it that matters and what doesn't. What am I getting measured on and what doesn't? What is all this? I don't need to do all this stuff because he said you do too much. That's what he said to me. And that when he said you do too much, I was like my this moment of, well, yeah, probably I do, right? So what is the too much? What is the stuff that I'm doing that doesn't matter? So that's where when you get really clear on what matters most, applying the techniques that I teach in my programs, which is what are your core 7 things that matter most in your planet? And what are the things you're doing that don't line up? And so you can do the same thing with your profession, right? So if you're at work and you're doing a bunch of stuff and you need this visibility, you need all this stuff, but really do you? Like, what are you measured on? What do you need to do in order to achieve those measures? Because, like in consulting, if you hit your numbers, that's what it's about. If you
Right.
don't hit your numbers, you're kind of screwed. But what do I need to do to hit my numbers? And what do I need to do to be able to hit all these other things that are going to be the differentiator between making it or not? And everything else I stopped doing because if it doesn't make an impact, then it's just taking me away from my ability to do it.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
almost an
like,
ego
it's
thing.
just,
You're doing
yeah,
it to show that I can do this and like a control thing. These are great
yeah,
questions. I hope you all, if you didn't write them down, as she said them, rewind and write them down because you can ask this of yourself in all areas, but
yeah.
not just your work life. Yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up staying. I did that whole thing, and then ultimately, I ended up getting a new boss who was not a nice human, and didn't support that work arrangement, even though it was making my numbers. So I ended up going out on my own as an independent consultant and making 3 times my salary. I paid off my debt in a year, and
Wow.
because I was getting my full bill rate. right?
Yeah.
So working for my old client. So it's a matter of, okay, what can you do with what you have that's possible that can still help you achieve what you want, right? And so that's what I ended up doing. And that's how I paid off my debt. And that's how I ended up being able to take the next step of, what do I want to do next? I ended up going back into consulting again because my husband at the time was getting himself fired. And so I knew I needed a job that had benefits. So I kind of had to give up on what I was going to do to help other people implement. So
Yeah.
I did consulting for another 7 years. But then what happened was I was getting miserable again. I was doing all the same things with not without the support that I knew I needed to be successful. I hated my job. I was crying. And I'm like, okay, this is not me living what I just got out of that other place for, right? And so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, what can I do? And it turned into, I ended up being able to start my own company, Journey Fuel, where now I'm helping people. I went out on my own, 1099 consultant, so I wouldn't have all the pressure of that job.
Yeah.
Went out on my own, 40-hour weeks doing like the most easy stuff on. I was like, oh my God, I'm doing Visio charts right now. This is amazing. I didn't
Yeah.
have 93 hats. I didn't have people not supporting me. I didn't have the, proposals. It was just a different life. So I went out on my own. And while I went out on my own with that, I started building Journey Fuel, which is what I do now, which
Yeah.
is helping people live lives they love waking up to using the tools and techniques that are missing in the personal development space, which is how do you go from knowing to doing?
Yeah.
Like, how do you go from that's a great idea to actually applying it into your own life?
Well, thank you for sharing that. You had to go back to go forward, because I think a lot of people get really frustrated with themselves when that happens. And
Yeah.
it happens to
Yeah.
all of us, right?
Yep.
Like I remember I was in a job that gave me anxiety. And so then I quit that to just do what I was passionate about, and I was loving it. And then I, for insurance reasons as well, took another job, and I brought
Yeah.
literally all the same things I was overdoing in the other
Yeah.
job. I brought that into this job, which is probably why they gave me
Yeah.
the job. They're like, oh, that's a girl who will do too much. And
Yeah. Exactly.
and I overdid it there. And I was like, oh my God, here I am again.
Yeah.
Here I am again in this situation. And you can get so mad at yourself, or you
Yeah.
can actually recognize the patterns. And then you can go, okay, well, now I know, like, every time I'm here, this is how I go. So I
Totally.
definitely, like, it's no longer a hypothesis, it's a fact. So I can make
Yeah.
these changes. And I think that's really important for people to hear from people like yourself, who have had these crazy transformations and are doing what they love. They sometimes, people think, oh, they went from A to B to rock bottom to D, and now they're like living their best life. And you had to go from A to B to A to B again a couple times
Yeah.
before you could do that. And I think that allows you to really understand the pitfalls and the
Yeah.
problems, and like see, like, oh, this is the missing link here, and
Yeah.
this is the thing that everyone needs, so they can actually do the thing that they want to do, and not just keep going back in that vicious cycle.
Absolutely. And the thing about that is, Steve Jobs said you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, why does that make any sense? You're like connecting the dots, right? How do you look backwards and connect? And then I thought, well, he's really smart. So there must be something to what he's saying. So reflecting on it, it's like, well, you're having all of these experiences in life, right? It kind of comes back to you got yourself into it, how to get yourself out of it. But there are things in those scenarios, like in those miserable experiences, or just skills that you're learning along the way, that when you start to look backwards, like, oh my gosh, that was why that happened. Or if I didn't have that 32 years ago, and then I didn't have this like 20 years ago, and then fast forward another 10, and now where I'm at, I wouldn't have the ability to have the scope of experience to help other people. I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
There's, I could have some of it, and you don't have to know everybody's life, but to know what pain is, like to know what it feels like when you can't think past the next second without
Yeah.
wanting to feel like a pile on the floor, and to know how to get out of it and how to put things in place so you don't need to be a pile on the floor before you take the next step.
Yeah.
Like
You
it's
can take
just,
it sooner. um,
yeah,
and I think that's so true. I mean, like, so I coach a lot of Pilates instructors, a lot of fitness instructors, and works well because I've been in their shoes. So when they say that their client who they see 4 times a week just told them they're going to be gone for 3 weeks, I know how much money that hurts. That's not like their friend or even another coach will be like, okay, so you have extra 4 hours a week. Like, it's like, no, actually they don't have another client to slip it. That person's been holding those 4 hours hostage for this long, and they have to like come up with a new client overnight who wants that much. So it's important. I think our experience is sometimes we go, why is this happening to me? And it's like, it's actually happening for you, because what all that happened for you, all those snotty tears in the car happened for you so that you can actually understand on a very like deep cellular level when someone says like, the music in the car is playing and I don't even hear it. Like that's where I'm at. And you could be like, oh, actually, I know how down the rabbit hole I know how far you are. I know how close you are to the bathroom floor. Let's make these changes now.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's so, I think it's so cool that you've like put yourself in this position of like taking the actual, applying the actual self-development into our lives, because I do think that that is where people just become like these self-development junkies. They like, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and like, it's so easy for me to like hear podcasts about this and boundaries and this and boundaries. And I'm like, okay, but I got to now have that conversation about boundaries. How do I do that? So I think, the world needs someone who can like apply it. So when you start to like apply these project management tools and these things to adding the self-development change they want to do to their life now, is this something that, does it depend on the thing that they want to do? How quickly can they add these things? And is it really a month-long like setup before they can, what's that process like? Because my perfectionists want to know, what's the timeline?
I know, right? How do I get this to happen right now? So, well, and just as a, background, so I call my company Journey Fuel because life's a journey, right? But and the idea of strategic planning and goals and measures just makes me want to like tense up and throw up. Like I'm so sick of those. Like that's such a stressful set of terms. So I've changed them all into different words. Same concept because they work, but it's like, how do you associate the process to be enjoyable? Like you're on a journey to find your authentic, amazing life, and it's to be enjoyable. So it doesn't just like some project where you're going to come up with these measures and these goals. Like, what is it that's in you that you want that's going to magnetize you forward versus having to push this rock up a hill is what most of it feels like. So what I do, my very first step is what program I call Walk the Talk Weekend, 2.5 days. I just had one. I have another one coming up, and it's 2.5 days. And we go through, first day is how to just get the snow to settle in the snow globe, right? Like you think if you shake it and it's like, just let the snow settle. Let's just get that to stop. And then how do you get clarity on what you want your life to be like? And the very first thing, and you guys can all do this right now, so it can start today, which is, life is a collection of feelings. That's it. That's it. Like we're here to experience feelings. That's all there is. So all the stuff, all the people, all the things that we're dreaming and wishing for, that's all to feel some way. So when you get to, if you start there versus what do you want? Like, what are your goals? What's your purpose? Like, it just, like, for me, it paralyzes a lot of people. Cause like, well, if I knew that, I would do it. Thanks. Hot tip. And plus, your brain is so crazy how to even connect. I couldn't connect to that music. Like, I just couldn't. And so when you're in a space like that, the best place and that's why I start all my programs this way is, how are you feeling now? Why? How do you want to feel instead? And what do you want that life experience to feel like? Then we, on that first day, do some visualizations, different techniques that I use that incorporate the practices without it feeling like I'm doing some business thing. Like it's all very fun and engaging. And what it ends up doing is it gets you into a space where you can start to use your feelings to guide what comes next. And then we do things like, well, what's in your life when you feel that way? Then start to find the themes in that. And that becomes day 2 where we're really looking at, well, should test that. Like, do you just want it because you're supposed to want it?
Oh, I love a should test. Yeah, I think I
Right?
should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, should test. And so is that for real? Like, is that coming from you or is that coming from your experience of other things that have gotten you there, right? So we do a should test and core, get it down to core seven, like seven things that you value most by going through that process. And then now that you know what your core seven are, your things that matter most, you can do what I was sharing earlier is like now you have a litmus test that when on day three we talk about tools and techniques of, well, how do you live those seven and nothing else? What are the tools and techniques you can use? And it really comes down to listening to, every single decision I make, everything that goes on what people call a to-do list that I call a playlist, is does it line up with one of my seven yes or no? And if it doesn't, I don't do it. And if I
Mm,
can't not do it, then the next question is, well, why am I doing it? What in my life is keeping me that I think I need to do this? What's happening? Where's that coming from? And you can use that to just start asking questions till you can filter that out, right? Filter
yeah.
that out of your life. But now you are aware that this is here, it's not part of my core seven. How do I shift my life? And I teach a bunch of different techniques on how to do that. So 2.5 days, you go from crazy snow globe head to knowing exactly what your core seven are, how to make a decision that's going to keep you in alignment and bring that experience of feelings in life to life.
Yeah.
And then the next step is my accelerator program, which I actually broke into an 8-week program where you now take that and now I help you step through, okay, now let's like activate that and look at your life as a whole. And by the end of the 8 weeks, help you build the capacity for change because
So
it's
that's
not
nice
going to
because
happen.
it's not like we're not doing it in 1 hour and we're not doing it in 3 weeks. Like
Right.
there's enough time in there to make
Yeah.
mistakes, make tweaks, make changes, and
Yep.
make implementations. That's really cool. That's really cool to know because I think sometimes we think it needs to happen tomorrow and we'd like it to
Yeah.
happen tomorrow, but there's a lot of unraveling that has to happen and some clarity that
Yeah.
has to get in there. So ah, this is so cool. I thank you for sharing this amazing journey that you've gone on because it's always good to hear the behind the scenes and like
Right.
what brought them to being where they are, where they just seem like it's all amazing. And it is, but that doesn't mean it was always. So it's so good to hear
Right.
that like you are a human being
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
you've like used what you were doing before, but for more impact and also so that you can also walk your talk, which is lovely. Okay, Stacy, where do you like to hang out? What social media platform? What's your website? Where can people find you and work with you?
So the best way to find out about what I'm doing is to go to journeyfuelgift.com, GIFT.com, because part of where, coming on here to your point of like saying a bunch of things, but not how to do it, I'm all about how to do it. So when you go to journeyfuelgift.com, I have a gift for your audience
Hmm.
that you can sign up for my next Walk the Talk weekend for free. And you can also sign up for a lot of times I have these 90-minute, what I call find your fire within sessions, where if you're not ready for 2.5 days, you just come to a 90-minute find your fire within, get yourself started, get your soul back alive.
Mhm.
And you can get to that on that link as well. So when you go to that link, you can sign up for those two things. That's the absolute best way because then you're doing something for yourself and not just learning about me. If you
Yeah.
do just want to know about a little bit more, go to at Your Journey Fuel on Facebook or Instagram, and you can find out what I'm doing from there. And it'll direct you to where my website is and stuff. But I encourage you to act and for yourself and take an action of do the 90-minute thing, do the walk the talk weekend. It's 2.5 days of your miserable life. Like right? Like
Yeah.
if
When you
you're
put it like
there,
that, it's like, yeah, it's only you can keep going or you can take 2.5 days off of, of
yeah,
what you're not wanting. Oh, I love that.
yeah.
Okay. You've given us some great questions, some great tips already. But
Mhm.
for the people who like skip to the end, they just want the action
Yeah,
items, bold, executable, intrinsic, or target steps people can take to be
yeah.
it till they see it. What do you have for us?
Number one thing you can do is something we all have accessible, which is our feelings, which isn't something that we're generally taught to use as a way of navigating, but they're there for a reason. And so if you're having a feeling you don't like, stop, think about, okay, where is this coming from? And how do I want to feel instead? And what are three different things, or if you can only come up with one, but usually there's at least three things you can do to get closer to feeling that way. So even if it's the tiniest step, right? So let's say you're super overwhelmed and you want to feel peaceful. Like, what's one baby step that you can take that'll get you closer to feeling peaceful? Because the more baby steps you take, the more capacity you have to think bigger and to do bigger things. But until then, it's just getting yourself to where you have the ability to do it, right? To give
Yeah.
yourself something achievable that you can succeed in. So, how are you feeling? How do you want to feel instead? What's one thing you can do to get closer to that? And it will change your life. I
Uh,
guarantee you.
it will, y'all. I've done things like that. And it's like, even sometimes it's like, I got to go clean the kitchen right now. And I'm like, that's not going to be fun. So I'm going to turn on some rap music and make it fun so that
Yeah,
it feels like I'm having fun while I load that dishwasher. Stacy,
right.
thank you so much for your amazing story and for your amazing tips. I know these are going to be super helpful for our listeners. Be it listeners, how are you? Thank you so much for listening. How are you going to use these in your life? Let us know. Tag Stacy, tag the Be It Pod. We'll have all of those links in the show notes so you can take advantage of her free gift as well. And then share this with a friend, because that is also how it is so much easier to be the person you want to be when the people around you are doing that as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So make sure you let us know what your takeaways are. And until next time, be it till you see it. That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day. Be It Till You See It is a production of As the Crows Fly Media.
It's written, produced, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Kroll. Our associate producer is Amanda Fraterelli.
Kevin Perez at Desenio handles all of our audio editing.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to our designer Jaira Mandal for creating all of our visuals, which you can't see because this is a podcast, and our digital producer Jay Perdoso for editing all the video each week so you can.
And to Angelina Herrico for transcribing each of our episodes so you can find them on our website. And finally, to Meredith Crowell for keeping us all on point and on time.